Hello and welcome to History Sleep Stories. Hey y'all, ever find yourself wondering what it'd be like to stumble on a stash of gold hidden for thousands of years? Like, not just some backyard coins, but treasures that kings, emperors, and whole civilizations once held tight, now vanished into the shadows of time. Imagine walking through an old city, or trekking a jungle, or diving into a sunken shipwreck, and suddenly realizing you're standing on secrets worth fortunes. Secrets that have been lost for centuries. Tonight, we're going to take a slow, deep dive into those mysteries. The dawn of civilization and early treasures. As the sun rose over the fertile valleys of the Tigris and Euphrates, the first whispers of human civilization began to echo across the land. It was here, in Mesopotamia, often called the cradle of civilization, that humans first moved beyond mere survival, building the foundations of society, culture, and wealth. By 4000 BCE, villages had evolved into thriving cities such as Uruk, Ur, and Eridu, where people experimented with writing, trade, and monumental architecture. And with these advances came treasures, objects of beauty and significance, crafted not merely for utility, but to reflect power, devotion, and identity. The earliest of these treasures were simple, yet profoundly significant. Clay tablets etched with the first forms of cuneiform writing, stone figurines representing gods and goddesses, and intricately carved jewelry from shells, stones, and precious metals spoke of a society increasingly conscious of status and symbolism. Archaeological excavations at Ur, the ancient Sumerian city, revealed royal tombs dating back to around 2600 BCE. Within these tombs lay golden headdresses, ceremonial daggers, and lapis lazuli jewelry, shining reminders of the grandeur and reverence that the Sumerians bestowed upon their rulers. The Great Death Pit at Yar, discovered by Sir Leonard Woolley in the 1920s, contained not only the remains of kings and queens, but also dozens of attendants and animals, their final resting places, a testament to the civilization as belief in the afterlife and the sacredness of wealth. Traveling westward, the banks of the Nile River in Egypt told a similar story of human ingenuity and reverence for treasures. By 3100 BCE, Upper and Lower Egypt had united under a single pharaoh, and the society flourished. Here, treasures took on both practical and symbolic forms. Golden amulets to protect the dead, intricately painted sarcophagi, and ceremonial objects buried deep within pyramids to ensure safe passage into the afterlife. The construction of the pyramids, particularly the Great Pyramid of Giza, around 2580 to 2560 BCE, demanded not just human labor, but an enormous investment in resources and artistic skill. Though many of the original treasures were plundered over millennia, archaeologists have unearthed stunning remnants, gold funerary masks, inlaid jewelry, and small statues, all echoing the Egyptians' desire to preserve their wealth, status, and devotion to their gods. Meanwhile, in the Indus Valley, stretching across what is now Pakistan and northwest India, the cities of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa were rising by around 2600 BCE. These urban centers, remarkable for their grid-like streets, advanced drainage systems, and standardized bricks, also produced treasures of a different kind. The Indus people left behind a vast array of small yet sophisticated artifacts. Carved seals depicting animals and mystical symbols, bronze figurines and beads crafted from semi-precious stones. Unlike Mesopotamian or Egyptian treasures, which often emphasized royal power, many Indus Valley artifacts suggest a society where trade, craftsmanship, and ritual played a central role. The discovery of a priest-king statue, with its intricate robe and enigmatic expression, hints at a culture deeply attuned to artistry and possibly spiritual hierarchy. Yet, unlike other ancient civilizations, the writing of the Indus Valley remains undeciphered, leaving the stories behind these treasures tantalizingly out of reach, locked in symbols we have yet to fully understand. The allure of these early treasures was not merely in their material value, but in the stories they conveyed. Every carved stone, every bead, and every gold ring offered insight into human priorities. Devotion to deities, the assertion of power, or the desire to leave a mark that would survive beyond one's lifetime. In Mesopotamia, the act of burying treasures in royal tombs was tied to beliefs in an afterlife where such wealth would continue to serve the deceased. In Egypt, treasures were similarly intertwined with spiritual journeys, their placement in tombs and temples reflecting a cosmology where gods and humans interacted closely. And in the Indus Valley, where no monumental tombs survive, treasures appear more integrated into daily life and trade, suggesting a culture where value is expressed through skill, aesthetic, and commerce. Trade was another driving force behind the creation and circulation of these treasures. The Sumerians exported textiles, grains, and crafted goods to surrounding regions, bringing back lapis lazuli from Afghanistan and gold from Egypt. These materials were transformed into jewelry, ceremonial items, and decorations that signified both wealth and connection to distant lands. In Egypt, gold was mined in Nubia, while copper and semi-precious stones traveled along trade networks stretching from the Levant to sub-Saharan Africa. The Indus Valley cities, with their extensive maritime trade along the Arabian Sea, distributed beads, carnelian, and seals across Mesopotamia, highlighting an early globalization of sorts, where treasures became markers of cross-cultural interaction and status. Yet with all this wealth came vulnerability. Many treasures were lost, stolen, or destroyed over the centuries, leaving gaps in our understanding. Mesopotamian temples and palaces were sacked by invading forces, treasures melted down or carried off, and knowledge of the original context vanished. Egyptian tombs were frequently looted, both in antiquity and modern times, depriving the world of countless artifacts and the stories they contained. Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, abandoned around 1900 BCE, left behind cities frozen in time but stripped of the human narratives that once animated them. These losses remind us that treasures are not eternal. They are fragile witnesses to human ambition, creativity, and belief. The fascination with lost treasures is, in part, a reflection of our own desire to connect with these vanished worlds. When archaeologists carefully brush dust from a golden dagger or decipher a clay tablet, they are not merely uncovering material wealth. They are glimpsing the lives, hopes, and fears of people who lived millennia ago. Consider the artifacts from yore. A simple shell necklace tells of trade networks, fashion, and the status of the wearer. A gold helmet reveals technological skill and ceremonial importance. In Egypt, a tiny scarab amulet conveys religious devotion, artistic skill, and the human wish for protection. Even in the Indus Valley, where the writing is lost to time, every intricately carved seal or finely crafted bead opens a window into culture, society, and identity. As we reflect on the dawn of civilization, it becomes clear that treasures are more than objects. They are symbols, vessels of meaning, and markers of human achievement. They show us that even in our earliest days, humans were driven not only by survival, but by curiosity, creativity, and a desire to be remembered. These artifacts, whether discovered in tombs, buried under layers of earth, or lost to the elements, remind us of a universal truth: the urge to create, to honor, and to preserve transcends time. The legacy of these early treasures continues to influence us today. Modern museums, historical research, and archaeological discoveries are all ways of reconnecting with the past, piecing together civilizations that once flourished, and examining the treasures they left behind. And while many artifacts remain lost, buried beneath sand, silt, or soil, the very idea of these treasures ignites our imagination, inspiring explorers, historians, and storytellers to search, uncover, and reflect. As night falls over the lands of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley, one can almost imagine the flickering torches in ancient temples, the golden glint of ornaments worn by kings and queens, and the soft clinking of beads and amulets. In these moments, history feels alive, not just as a record of human events, but as a tapestry of creativity, belief, and aspiration. The treasures of the dawn of civilization may have been scattered or hidden, but their stories endure, whispering across time to anyone willing to listen. And so, as we close this chapter on the earliest civilizations and their treasures, we prepare to journey next into the land of the pharaohs, where gold art and sacred ritual would reach astonishing heights, and where some of the most famous lost treasures in human history await discovery. The gold of the pharaohs, ancient Egypt. The sun rises over the vast expanse of the Nile, casting long golden reflections across its waters. Egypt, the land of enduring monuments, fertile banks, and timeless deserts, has captivated the imagination of the world for millennia. From the earliest dynasties to the final days of pharaonic rule, Egypt was a civilization obsessed with eternity, an obsession expressed most vividly in the treasures it produced, preserved, and sometimes lost to the relentless passage of time. By 3100 BCE, Upper and Lower Egypt had united under the first pharaoh, a ruler seen as both king and god. With this unification came a centralized system of wealth, ritual, and monumental architecture. Early tombs, often modest mastabas, contained not only the deceased, but objects intended for the afterlife: ceramic vessels, jewelry, and simple amulets. As dynasties progressed, these tombs became increasingly elaborate, culminating in the towering pyramids of the Old Kingdom. The Great Pyramid of Giza, constructed around 2580 to 2560 BCE for Pharaoh Khufu, is not merely a feat of engineering. It is a testament to a society's devotion to their ruler and belief in life beyond death. Within its chambers, treasures once glittered gold, alabaster, and finely carved wood, but centuries of tomb robbers, both ancient and modern, stripped most of these objects from their eternal resting places. The treasures of the pharaohs were never merely ornamental. They were sacred, symbolic, and deeply intertwined with religion. Amulets carved from gold, faience, and semi-precious stones protected the soul on its journey to the afterlife. The scarab beetle, symbolizing rebirth and transformation, adorned the bodies of kings and nobles alike. Funerary masks, the most famous of which is that of Tutankhamun, encapsulated both artistic mastery and spiritual function, designed to preserve the identity of the deceased while invoking divine protection. The Mask of Tutankhamun, discovered by Howard Carter in 1922, is a shining example of Egypt's unparalleled craftsmanship. Its gold surface inlaid with lapis lazuli, carnelian, and obsidian, a glittering representation of the pharaoh's divine status. Yet, even the most carefully guarded treasures were not immune to theft or destruction. Tomb robbing was rampant, especially during periods of political instability. Historical records from as early as the 12th dynasty describe officials tasked with investigating thefts of royal tombs. Over time, many treasures disappeared, their fates lost to history. Some were melted down, others buried in secret caches, while yet more were looted by foreign invaders. The exact contents of the vast majority of pyramids and royal tombs remain a mystery, fueling centuries of speculation, exploration, and imagination. Beyond tombs, Egypt's temples and palaces were repositories of wealth. Temples dedicated to gods like Amun, Ra, and Isis house votive offerings, objects donated by the faithful, often made of gold, silver, and precious stones. The temples themselves, adorned with painted reliefs, statues, and intricately carved columns, reflected both divine and earthly power. Pharaohs used these treasures not only to honor the gods, but to assert their authority over Egypt, linking religious devotion with political dominance. Among the most extraordinary discoveries is the treasure of Tanis, found in the Nile Delta, which included solid gold statues, jewelry, and ceremonial artifacts, comparable in splendor to Tutankhamun's tomb, yet hidden for millennia. The Nile, a lifeline for the civilization, also played a role in the preservation and sometimes destruction of treasures. Floods, shifting sands, and the slow erosion of time claimed countless objects, while some were deliberately hidden to protect them from invaders. Stories abound of treasures sealed in secret tombs or buried in caches, only to be discovered centuries later by archaeologists or explorers, guided by ancient texts and local legend. These discoveries offer tantalizing glimpses of wealth, artistry, and spiritual life, yet they also highlight the fragility of human creation against the forces of time and nature. Egyptian treasures were not static. They evolved with dynasties and cultural influences. During the New Kingdom, 1550 to 1070 BCE, Egypt reached the height of its wealth and power, expanding its reach into Nubia and the Near East. Pharaohs such as Hatshepsut, Akhenaten, and Ramses II commissioned extraordinary works of art and ceremonial objects. The tomb of Tutankhamun, a relatively minor king who reigned during the 14th century BCE, became one of the most famous due to the astonishing wealth preserved within it, from chariots to furniture, jewelry, and ritual implements. These items illustrate both daily life and ritual practice, revealing a culture where the material and spiritual worlds were inseparably linked. Yet, the fascination with Egypt's treasures is not limited to what has been found. Many objects remain undiscovered, hidden by time, sand, or deliberate concealment. Ancient texts speak of lost treasures. The fabled labyrinth, described by Herodotus as a massive complex of chambers filled with art and relics. Caches of gold hidden by pharaohs fearing tomb robbers. And sacred items lost in the sands of desert temples. The line between myth and reality blurs, creating a sense of wonder that has persisted through centuries, inspiring explorers, archaeologists, and storytellers alike. Cultural context is essential to understanding these treasures. In ancient Egypt, gold was more than wealth. It was the flesh of the gods, incorruptible and eternal. Jewelry, amulets, and ceremonial objects were imbued with spiritual power, and their placement in tombs and temples reflected a belief system that linked divine favor with earthly prosperity. Artifacts served multiple purposes. They were practical, aesthetic, protective, and symbolic. Even mundane objects, like pottery or furniture, could be lavishly decorated to honor the gods or signify status. In this way, Egyptian treasures were inseparable from the civilization's worldview, offering insight into the values, priorities, and aspirations of a society devoted to eternity. The modern study of these treasures continues to reveal new knowledge. Advanced imaging technologies, chemical analysis, and archaeological excavation techniques allow us to peer beneath the surface, uncovering hidden details about materials, construction methods, and usage. Every discovery, whether a small amulet or a massive golden statue, adds to a growing understanding of Egypt's complex culture and its relationship with wealth and spirituality. Moreover, ethical considerations now guide much of this exploration, emphasizing preservation, cultural heritage, and respect for the civilizations that produced these extraordinary objects. The story of Egypt's lost treasures is also a story of human curiosity, ambition, and resilience. From tomb robbers in antiquity to modern archaeologists navigating deserts and deciphering hieroglyphs, the pursuit of these treasures reflects a deep fascination with the past and a desire to connect with civilizations that once thrived. Each object uncovered carries with it a fragment of human history, revealing not just material wealth, but ideas, beliefs, and artistic vision. The golden mask of Tutankhamun, the treasure of Tanis, and countless other artifacts stand as enduring symbols of creativity, devotion, and the eternal human quest to leave a mark upon the world. As night falls over the Nile, one can imagine the flickering torchlight illuminating temples and tombs, the glint of gold catching the eye, and the quiet reverence of priests, artisans, and rulers. The treasures of the pharaohs, though partially lost, continue to speak across time, telling stories of ambition, spirituality, and the desire for immortality. They remind us that even thousands of years ago, humans sought to create beauty, preserve memory, and honor the divine, a pursuit that resonates as strongly today as it did in the courts of ancient kings. And so, as we leave the golden sands of Egypt behind, we prepare to journey westward across oceans and jungles, to the lost civilizations of the Americas, where treasures of gold, stone, and ceremonial significance await, hidden for centuries beneath the earth in foliage, whispering of empires both grand and mysterious. The hidden wealth of the Americas. Long before European sails appeared on the horizon, the Americas were home to civilizations that built cities of stone, cultivated vast fields, and created treasures that dazzled the eye and held profound spiritual significance. From the dense jungles of Mesoamerica to the soaring Andes Mountains, these societies produced objects that were not just wealth, but expressions of religion, power, and artistry. And yet, much of this treasure would disappear hidden, looted, or lost, leaving only fragments of once great empires for the modern world to discover. The Maya civilization, which flourished from approximately 2000 BCE to 1500 CE across modern-day Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, was a culture of astronomical knowledge, intricate writing, and architectural marvels. Their cities Tikal, Palenque, and Copan rose amidst dense forests, with towering temples, grand plazas, and ceremonial ball courts. Within these cities, treasures took many forms: jade masks, obsidian blades, gold ornaments, and finely painted ceramics. Jade, in particular, was prized not merely for its beauty, but for its spiritual significance, associated with life, fertility, and the divine. Burials of Maya rulers often contained elaborate offerings, including jade beads, figurines, and ceremonial objects meant to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. Yet much of the Maya treasure has been lost to time. Centuries of warfare, the collapse of city-states, and natural decay have hidden many artifacts beneath layers of earth and vegetation. Some treasures were looted in antiquity. Others remain buried, waiting for archaeologists to uncover them. The discovery of tombs in sites like Palenque has provided glimpses into the wealth and sophistication of Maya royalty. But these represent only a fraction of what was once amassed by a civilization that revered art, astronomy, and ritual. To the south, the Aztec Empire, centered on Tenochtitlan in modern-day Mexico City, reached its height in the 14th and 15th centuries CE. The Aztecs were master builders, creating canals, causeways, and grand temples like the Templo Mayor. Within these temples, gold, turquoise, and ceremonial artifacts gleamed in the sun, offerings to gods like Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc. The Aztec obsession with human sacrifice was tied directly to these treasures. Ceremonial objects, masks, and ritual regalia were created to honor the gods and ensure cosmic balance. Spanish conquistadors, led by Hernan Cortes in the early 16th century, encountered immense wealth, but also caused catastrophic loss. Treasures of gold were melted down, sacred objects destroyed, and entire city centers looted. The disappearance of these treasures left only tantalizing fragments of gold artifacts, codices, and accounts written by chroniclers who marveled at the riches of Tenochtitlan. Further south, high in the Andes, the Inca Empire, circa 1400 to 1533 EE, constructed cities of stone that defied both gravity and imagination. Machu Picchu, perched among misty peaks, exemplifies the Inca mastery of architecture and integration with the natural world. The Incas treasured gold, not only for its material value, but for its spiritual significance. Gold was considered the sweat of the sun, a divine substance to honor Inti, the sun god. Temples like the Coricancha in Cusco were adorned with gold panels, statues, and offerings that reflected both devotion and political power. During the Spanish conquest, vast quantities of Inca gold were looted, melted, or lost, leaving only ruins, and the echoes of a civilization that revered both beauty and the sacred. The treasures of the Americas were often more than mere displays of wealth. They were deeply entwined with spiritual and social life. In Maya society, jade and obsidian were not just ornamental, they were conduits to the divine, used in ceremonies, sacrifices, and as symbols of royal authority. Aztec gold objects were similarly spiritual, crafted for temples and religious events. In the Inca world, gold and silver were symbols of divine favor, given as offerings and embedded in architecture, masks, and ritual items. These civilizations understood that treasure was not simply wealth, it was power, devotion, and a bridge between the mortal and divine realms. Yet, the European arrival forever changed the fate of these treasures. Conquistadors, driven by both greed and the belief in their own cultural superiority, plundered cities, melted precious metals, and scattered artifacts across Europe. The stories of hidden caches of Inca gold buried in secret mountain caves, Aztec treasures concealed beneath pyramids, and Maya artifacts hidden in jungle tombs fuel myths and modern exploration. Some of these treasures have been recovered, others remain lost, and many are likely gone forever. Archaeology has begun to piece together these fragments, revealing glimpses of the splendor and complexity of these civilizations. Excavations in Tikal have uncovered jade burial masks and ceremonial objects that demonstrate the Maya's exquisite craftsmanship. In Cusco and the Sacred Valley, remnants of Coricancho's golden walls testify to the Incas' reverence for the sun and their architectural genius. Even small finds, a piece of turquoise jewelry, a carved figurine, tell stories of trade networks, societal hierarchy, and spiritual practice that would otherwise be forgotten. Trade was another crucial component of treasure in the Americas. The Maya traded jade, obsidian, cacao, and textiles across vast distances, connecting cities and regions. The Aztecs engaged in extensive tribute systems, where conquered peoples delivered gold, textiles, and food as offerings to the empire. The Incas maintained a sophisticated system of roads and storehouses, allowing wealth to be mobilized, stored, and ritually distributed across their mountainous empire. In all these cases, treasure was a symbol of connection between rulers and subjects, humans and gods, cities and empires. The mystery of lost treasures continues to inspire modern explorers, historians, and adventurers. Tales of hidden Inca gold in the mountains, submerged Aztec offerings in Lake Texcoco, or forgotten Maya tombs in the dense jungles evoke both wonder and determination. These treasures are not merely material, they are windows into the ingenuity, devotion, and creativity of civilizations that thrived long before European contact. Reflecting on the hidden wealth of the Americas, one sees a shared theme across human history. Treasure is both ephemeral and enduring. While countless artifacts were destroyed, melted down, or hidden by circumstance, the surviving objects provide a tangible link to cultures that valued beauty, ritual, and power. They remind us that human ambition, artistry, and spiritual devotion are constants across time and space, whether along the Nile in Mesopotamia or high in the Andes. As twilight descends over the jungles of Mesoamerica and the peaks of the Andes, one could almost hear the faint echoes of ceremonial drums, the shimmer of gold in candlelit temples, and the quiet reverence of people laying offerings to their gods. These lost treasures, though scattered or hidden, continue to whisper across centuries, reminding us that the story of wealth, devotion, and human ingenuity is far from complete. And so, having explored the hidden wealth of the Americas, we now turn our gaze toward the Mediterranean world, where the treasures of Greece and Rome illuminate the ambitions, artistry, and splendor of civilizations that shaped much of Western history and left behind some of the most iconic treasures ever recorded. Treasures of the Mediterranean, Greece and Rome. The Mediterranean sun casts its warm light across a sea that has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the clash of armies, and the creation of some of the most iconic treasures in human history. From the marble temples of Athens to the opulent villas of Rome, Greece and Rome cultivated wealth not merely for display, but as an expression of power, devotion, and artistic mastery. And yet, like treasures in distant lands, much has been lost, hidden, looted, or shattered by time. Greece, the cradle of philosophy, drama, and democracy, was also a civilization that prized beauty and craftsmanship. From the 12th century BCE onward, Greek city-states accumulated wealth through trade, conquest, and tribute. Temples dedicated to gods such as Athena, Apollo, and Zeus were adorned with gold and ivory statues, painted friezes, and offerings from citizens who sought divine favor. The Parthenon, completed in 438 BCE, exemplifies this synthesis of wealth, artistry, and devotion. Its sculptural decorations, including the frieze depicting the Pantheistic procession, were once painted in vivid colors and adorned with gold leaf, conveying both piety and civic pride. Greek treasures extended beyond architecture and religious offerings. Jewelry, coins, and finely crafted pottery reflected both status and taste. The golden diadems and wreaths found in burial sites illustrate the sophistication of metalwork, while intricate ceramics reveal mastery of narrative and design. Even in warfare, treasures played a central role. Captured riches from defeated city-states were brought to temples or used to commission new works of art, demonstrating the interconnection of power, religion, and wealth. Yet, centuries of invasions, looting, and natural decay erased many of these treasures, leaving only fragments for modern archaeologists to reconstruct. Rome, which emerged as a dominant force in the Mediterranean by the 1st century BCE, inherited much of Greek culture, but amplified its expression of wealth and power. Roman villas, palaces, and public spaces were adorned with mosaics, frescoes, statues, and imported luxuries from across the empire. Wealthy patricians displayed gold, silver, and gem-encrusted objects, while emperors used public treasures to assert authority and impress both citizens and allies. The Colosseum, the Forum, and the villas of Pompeii reveal the scale of Roman ambition and the integration of art, architecture, and wealth. Among the most famous lost treasures of Rome were those of Troy and the Byzantine Empire. Homer's Iliad recounts the vast wealth of Troy, from gold jewelry to sacred statues, though the historical reality remains elusive. Centuries later, Byzantine treasures plundered during invasions by Persians. Arabs and Crusaders vanished into the annals of history, leaving only written records and occasional archaeological finds. Roman imperial treasures, often buried to protect them from invaders, remain partially hidden, waiting for discovery. Coins were another essential form of treasure in Greece and Rome, representing both economic utility and propaganda. Greek city-states minted coins bearing the images of gods, heroes, or local symbols, circulating both wealth and cultural identity. Roman coins often depicted emperors, victories, and divine favor, serving as tools of communication and assertion of authority across a vast empire. The circulation of these coins, some of which have survived millennia buried in the ground, connects us directly to the economic and cultural life of these civilizations. Trade also facilitated the accumulation of treasures. Greek merchants brought silver from Laurium, ivory from Africa, and exotic materials from Asia. Roman trade networks spanned Europe, North Africa, and the Near East, bringing silk, spices, and precious stones into the empire. Many of these materials were transformed into jewelry, ceremonial objects, or architectural adornments, reflecting both taste and status. In both Greece and Rome, treasure was not merely static wealth, it was dynamic, circulating through society, religious life, and politics. Yet, with wealth came vulnerability. Rome, in particular, faced repeated invasions that led to the loss of treasures. The sack of Rome by the Visigoths in 410 CE and later by the Vandals in 455 CE, resulted in vast amounts of gold, silver, and art being taken or destroyed. Temples, villas, and public spaces were stripped of their wealth, dispersing treasures across Europe and North Africa. Archaeological excavations have unearthed fragments, mosaics, statues, coins, and jewelry that testify to the grandeur that once existed, but also the fragility of human creation. The treasures of Greece and Rome were deeply intertwined with culture and belief. Greek offerings to gods, Roman imperial commissions, and both civilizations' dedication to beauty and craftsmanship reveal an understanding that wealth could be a conduit for both power and piety. Temples, public buildings, and tombs were stages upon which the aspirations of humans, both mortal and divine, were expressed. Every statue, gold wreath, or intricately designed coin tells a story not only of material wealth, but of societal values, artistic vision, and spiritual expression. Modern archaeology has slowly unveiled these treasures, revealing both their physical beauty and historical significance. Excavations at sites like Olympia, the Roman Forum, and Pompeii provide insight into daily life, social hierarchy, and the ceremonial use of wealth. Even small finds, a fragment of a fresco, a coin, or a piece of jewelry, offer profound insights into civilizations that shaped Western culture. The challenge remains immense. Much is lost, hidden, or scattered, leaving a tantalizing mixture of reality and legend. Legend has also played a role in shaping our fascination with Mediterranean treasures. Tales of Troy's lost riches, the wealth of Roman emperors, and Byzantine hoards captured the imagination of generations. These stories, whether entirely factual or embellished over centuries, inspire exploration, scholarship, and discovery. They remind us that treasure is not merely an object, but a symbol, a reflection of human ambition, artistry, and the desire to connect with the divine or eternal. As the Mediterranean sun sets, casting long shadows over ancient ruins, one can imagine the glint of gold in temple chambers, the sparkle of gemstones in aristocratic villas, and the quiet reverence of priests, artisans, and citizens, contributing to a legacy of wealth, beauty, and meaning. These treasures, though many have been lost, continue to speak across millennia, whispering the stories of human creativity, devotion, and ambition. And so, leaving behind the marble columns of Greece and the sprawling estates of Rome, we turn eastward toward China, India, and the Far East civilizations whose treasures were equally magnificent, crafted with devotion, skill, and spiritual significance, waiting to be rediscovered after centuries of concealment and loss. The East, China, India, and the Far East. The sun rises over the misty mountains of China and the lush plains of India, illuminating civilizations that have long captivated the imagination with their artistry, devotion, and treasures. Unlike the Mediterranean or the Americas, the East produced wealth that was often as much spiritual as material, reflecting religious beliefs, philosophical systems, and the sophisticated craftsmanship of their people. From imperial tombs to temple treasures, from jade carvings to golden statuary, the East has been home to some of the most extraordinary objects ever created, and many remain lost, hidden, or buried beneath the earth. In China, the story of treasure begins in the earliest dynasties. By 2000 BCE, during the Shang dynasty, kings and nobles accumulated wealth expressed in bronze vessels, jade ornaments, and ritual objects. These treasures were not merely decorative, they were conduits to the spiritual world. Bronze ritual vessels, often intricately carved and inscribed, were used in offerings to ancestors and gods, blending artistry with profound religious significance. Jade, considered eternal and uncorruptible, symbolized purity, immortality, and social rank. Burial sites of the Shang elite contained exquisite examples, including ceremonial weapons and ornaments, revealing a culture that intertwined wealth with spiritual and societal order. The subsequent Zhou dynasty, 1046–256 BCE, expanded both the scale and sophistication of Chinese treasures. Royal tombs grew larger, and the use of precious metals, elaborate bronzes, and jade artifacts became more pronounced. The concept of the mandate of heaven reinforced the belief that rulers were divinely sanctioned, and treasures were both symbols and instruments of this divine authority. Archaeological discoveries, including tombs with hundreds of ritual items, chariots, and musical instruments, highlight the grandeur and spiritual importance of wealth in early China. Perhaps no treasure better illustrates the magnificence of ancient China than the terracotta army, commissioned by Emperor Qin Shi Huang around 210 BCE, buried to protect the emperor in the afterlife. This army of thousands of life-sized warriors, horses, and chariots exemplifies both monumental craftsmanship and spiritual belief. Though primarily made of clay, the terracotta army was originally painted in vivid colors, and the tomb complex itself contained treasures of gold, jade, and other precious materials, most of which remain hidden, buried with the emperor beneath layers of earth and stone. Moving south, India's civilizations produced treasures equally astonishing, often blending artistry with devotion. The Maurya Empire, circa 322 to 185 BCE, and the Gupta Empire, circa 320 to 550 CE, oversaw the creation of jewelry, temple adornments, and ceremonial objects in gold and precious stones. Temples, in particular, were repositories of wealth, with sculpted figures, gold panels, and gemstone-studded icons dedicated to gods such as Vishnu, Shiva, and Devi. The elaborate craftsmanship of Indian gold jewelry, combined with the symbolic significance of gemstones, demonstrates a civilization where treasure was inseparable from spiritual practice, social hierarchy, and royal power. Lost treasures in India are often intertwined with legend and history. Accounts of temple treasures hidden during invasions, royal hoards buried in secret locations, and caches of gold and jewels lost to time abound across the subcontinent. The Nanda dynasty, for example, is said to have amassed vast riches, much of which vanished as dynasties rose and fell. Even today, archaeologists uncover fragments, coins, jewelry, and ritual objects that hint at immense wealth. Yet the full scope remains beyond reach, leaving an enduring sense of mystery. Across Southeast Asia, civilizations such as those of Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam produced treasures that reflected both Indian influence and indigenous artistry. The Khmer Empire, centered on Angkor, 9th–10th centuries CE, created monumental temples adorned with sculptures, gold leaf, and ceremonial objects. Temples like Angkor Wat were designed not only as centers of worship, but also as repositories of wealth, blending spiritual devotion with architectural grandeur. Many treasures, however, were looted during invasions or lost as temples fell into ruin, leaving behind remnants that whisper of a civilization that celebrated both beauty and the sacred. Trade was a key factor in the creation and circulation of treasures in the East. The Silk Road connected China, India, and Central Asia, facilitating the movement of silk, spices, precious stones, and metals. Luxury goods were transformed into jewelry, ritual objects, and temple adornments, often crossing vast distances and blending cultural styles. Treasures became symbols of both wealth and cosmopolitan connection, linking emperors, merchants, and religious institutions across continents. The spiritual significance of treasures in the East cannot be overstated. In China, jade and bronze connected rulers to the divine and ancestors. In India, gold and gemstones were offerings to gods, embodiments of cosmic principles and symbols of social hierarchy. Across Southeast Asia, treasures reflected both devotion and power, integrated into temples, rituals, and public ceremonies. Unlike purely material wealth, these objects carried meaning, linking the human and spiritual realms in ways that resonated for centuries. Yet, treasures in the East were also vulnerable to time, conquest, and human ambition. Invasions, political upheaval, and natural disasters led to the loss, destruction, or concealment of countless artifacts. Many imperial tombs in China remain undiscovered, their contents gold, jade, and ceremonial items hidden beneath mounds of earth. Temple treasures in India and Southeast Asia were buried, stolen, or melted down, leaving only fragments of what once existed. These losses contribute to the enduring allure of Eastern treasures, blending history, legend, and the human desire to uncover what has been hidden. Modern archaeology and conservation efforts continue to reveal these lost treasures, illuminating civilizations that thrived for centuries. Excavations at imperial tombs, temple complexes, and urban centers provide insight into daily life, spiritual practice, and the social significance of wealth. Even small artifacts, a jade figurine, a gold amulet, a gemstone-studded ornament, offer a tangible link to cultures that valued beauty, devotion, and the eternal. Technologies like ground-penetrating radar, LiDAR, and chemical analysis now allow scholars to locate and study treasures without disturbing their delicate contexts, offering new hope for uncovering what has long been hidden. Reflecting on the treasures of the East, one sees a theme shared across human history. Wealth is never merely material. It is expression, devotion, and connection. These objects, whether buried in tombs, concealed in temples, or lost to legend, convey the priorities, beliefs, and aspirations of civilizations that shaped vast regions of the world. They remind us that treasure is a bridge between the past and present, between human creativity and the divine, between the tangible and the symbolic. As twilight falls over the valleys of China, the plains of India, and the temples of Southeast Asia, one can imagine flickering torchlight illuminating golden panels, jade figurines, and gemstone-studded icons. The treasures of the East, though many remain lost, continue to whisper across time, telling stories of artistry, devotion, and the human desire to create objects worthy of eternity. And so, as we leave behind the temples and tombs of the East, we prepare to journey into legend and mystery itself, exploring sunken treasures, mythical cities, and tales of lost wealth that have inspired explorers and dreamers for centuries, the focus of our next chapter. The legends of lost cities and sunken treasures. Imagine standing on the edge of a coastline, the waves lapping at your feet, and feeling that beneath the endless blue lies a world frozen in time ships, laden with gold cities swallowed by the sea, and treasures lost for centuries. Across history, human imagination and ambition have intertwined with the real and the fantastical, giving rise to stories of lost cities, sunken ships, and treasures that capture the soul of explorers, historians, and dreamers alike. One of the most enduring legends is that of Atlantis. First mentioned by Plato around 360 BCE, Atlantis was described as a vast, advanced civilization, rich in gold, precious metals, and architectural wonders, ultimately swallowed by the ocean in a single day and night of catastrophe. Whether Atlantis existed as a historical city or as an allegory, the idea of a sunken metropolis filled with unimaginable treasure has captivated imaginations for centuries. Numerous expeditions have searched the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, and even Antarctica for signs of the lost city, yet no definitive evidence has ever emerged. Still, the legend persists, a testament to humanity's fascination with wealth, power, and the unknown. Across South America, legends of El Dorado, the Golden One, drew conquistadors deep into jungles, rivers, and mountains. Originally a ritual figure, the name came to symbolize entire cities, kingdoms, and mountains overflowing with gold. The Spanish conquest was driven, in part, by the pursuit of this mythical wealth, inspiring centuries of exploration and tragedy. Many expeditions failed, and countless treasures may have been lost to rivers, swamps, or deliberate concealment by indigenous peoples. The lure of El Dorado remains potent, blending history and myth, wealth and ambition, in a story that has fascinated treasure hunters for generations. Shipwrecks across the world's oceans tell equally compelling stories of treasures lost at sea. From the Mediterranean to the Caribbean, vessels carrying gold, spices, and precious artifacts sank due to storms, navigation errors, or warfare. Each wreck preserves a moment in time, capturing both the wealth of a civilization and the fragility of human endeavor. The Spanish galleons of the 16th and 17th centuries, transporting gold and silver from the Americas to Europe, often succumbed to hurricanes or pirates, leaving sunken troves still sought by modern treasure hunters. Techniques like sonar scanning, underwater archaeology, and remotely operated vehicles have uncovered fragments of these treasures, providing glimpses of cargoes that once symbolized imperial ambition and global trade. Ancient shipwrecks were not limited to the colonial period. In the Mediterranean, Greek, Roman, and Phoenician ships carried bronze, silver, coins, and luxury goods along trade routes connecting Europe, Africa, and Asia. The Ulugaran shipwreck off the coast of Turkey, dating to the 14th century BCE, contained copper and tin ingots, ivory, glass beads, and precious jewelry, evidence of a highly sophisticated trade network and the movement of wealth across continents. Similarly, the Antikythera shipwreck, around 70 BCE, revealed coins, statues, and the famous Antikythera mechanism, an early analog computer, blending treasure with scientific ingenuity. These discoveries illustrate how treasures are not only material wealth, but vessels of knowledge and culture, offering insight into the priorities, technology, and artistry of past civilizations. The concept of lost cities extends beyond legend into history. Cities like Heracleion and Thonis, once prosperous ports of Egypt, sank beneath the Mediterranean over time due to natural disasters and rising waters. Rediscovered in the late 20th century, these underwater cities reveal temples, statues, coins, and daily use objects, showcasing the wealth and sophistication of ancient Egyptian maritime trade. Similarly, cities such as Pavlopetri in Greece, one of the oldest submerged cities in the world, offer a window into Bronze Age life and the treasures embedded within it, frozen beneath centuries of sediment. Treasure hunting, whether guided by myth, archaeology, or sheer curiosity, has always been a mix of adventure and discovery. While some pursuits were motivated by greed or conquest, others have advanced knowledge, revealing lost civilizations and preserving artifacts for future generations. Modern technology has revolutionized exploration. LiDAR surveys uncover hidden ruins in jungles. Sonar mapping reveals sunken ships beneath the ocean floor, and satellite imagery identifies lost urban centers, long buried under soil or sand. Each discovery, whether a temple, tomb, or shipwreck, connects us to the human fascination with wealth, legacy, and the unknown. Yet the allure of lost treasures is not purely material. They embody aspiration, imagination, and the human desire to reach beyond the known. Atlantis symbolizes lost knowledge, El Dorado represents ambition and obsession, and sunken ships remind us of the impermanence of human endeavor. These treasures, whether historical or legendary, are stories waiting to be uncovered, lessons etched in gold, bronze, and stone. They connect us to a continuum of human ambition that spans continents, oceans, and millennia. Cultural context adds layers of meaning to these treasures. In Atlantis, gold and architecture reflected political power and divine favor, even if the city existed only in allegory. In El Dorado, wealth was tied to ritual, kingship, and spiritual symbolism. Sunken ships carried the material culture of empires, connecting trade, economy, and religion. Lost cities and submerged treasures remind us that human creativity and devotion are inseparable from the objects we craft, hoard, or offer to the divine. As evening falls over the oceans and rivers, one can imagine the glint of gold beneath murky waters, the ornate architecture of a sunken city, and the quiet pulse of civilizations swallowed by time. Each treasure reel or imagined whispers across the centuries, telling stories of human endeavor, ingenuity, and the eternal fascination with wealth and mystery. They remind us that while treasures can be lost, their stories endure, inspiring exploration, reflection, and imagination across generations. And so, as we leave behind the sunken city's legendary mountains of gold and hidden shipwrecks, we arrive at our final chapter, a reflection on the enduring mystery of lost treasures, modern discoveries, and the cultural and ethical implications of these human relics, connecting the past to our present curiosity and wonder. The enduring mystery of lost treasures. The enduring mystery of lost treasures. The allure of lost treasures is timeless. Across continents, civilizations, and oceans, human beings have pursued wealth, beauty, and the eternal, often leaving behind relics that continue to fascinate centuries later. From the tombs of Mesopotamia and Egypt to the jungles of the Americas, the temples of the East, and the sunken cities of legend, treasures are more than gold or jewels. They are vessels of culture, ambition, and the human spirit. They reflect not only what we value materially, but what we cherish spiritually, socially, and intellectually. Even today, the search for lost treasures connects the past with the present. Archaeologists, historians, and explorers use advanced technology and careful research to uncover artifacts that illuminate civilizations long vanished. LiDAR surveys in Central America have revealed previously unknown Maya cities, their ceremonial plazas, and tombs hiding treasures once thought lost. Remote sensing and underwater archaeology have brought to light shipwrecks carrying the wealth of empires across the Mediterranean, Atlantic, and Pacific Oceans. Each discovery, whether a fragment of pottery, a coin, a golden mask, or a sunken ship's cargo, is a tangible connection to human creativity, belief, and enterprise. Yet, treasures are also reminders of fragility and impermanence. Tombs are plundered, cities collapse, and empires fall. What survives is often accidental, the result of concealment, burial, or preservation under the earth or sea. The gold of Tutankhamun, the jade of the Maya, the sunken galleons of the Spanish treasure fleets, each is a survivor against the odds, offering insight into lives, cultures, and ambitions that have otherwise vanished. These remnants teach us that treasures are not eternal, but their stories can endure, inspiring curiosity, reflection, and scholarship. Ethics plays an increasingly important role in the study and preservation of lost treasures. Modern archaeologists prioritize careful excavation, documentation, and respect for cultural heritage, often working with local communities to ensure that treasures are preserved and studied responsibly. International treaties, museum collaborations, and technological advances help protect artifacts from looting and destruction, allowing us to appreciate not only their material value, but also the cultural, historical, and spiritual significance they carry. In this sense, treasures are not just about wealth. They are about connection, education, and shared human legacy. The fascination with lost treasures also speaks to the human imagination. Myths like Atlantis and El Dorado, legends of sunken cities and hidden mountains of gold, continue to inspire adventure, literature, and exploration. These stories remind us that the pursuit of treasure is as much about discovery and wonder as it is about material gain. They encourage us to reflect on human ambition, curiosity, and the enduring desire to reach beyond the known. Even when treasures remain undiscovered, their presence in legend shapes our understanding of history, culture, and imagination. Across time and space, treasures share common themes. They signify devotion, whether to gods, kings, or cultural ideals. They express artistry and craftsmanship, revealing the skills and aesthetics of civilizations. They embody power, wealth, and status, marking social hierarchies and political authority. And they preserve memory, allowing future generations to glimpse the values, beliefs, and achievements of societies long gone. From the royal tombs of Mesopotamia to the sunken galleons of the New World, treasures are threads connecting past to present, material to spiritual, known to unknown. Even as many treasures remain lost, their stories continue to inspire. Each artifact recovered, each legend investigated, enriches our understanding of humanity. They remind us that history is alive, that civilizations were complex, vibrant, and interconnected, and that the human desire to create, honor, and preserve transcends time. The treasures themselves may be gone, hidden, or destroyed, but the knowledge, awe, and inspiration they impart endure. As we reflect on this journey from the first civilizations along the Tigris and Euphrates, through the golden tombs of Egypt, the hidden wealth of the Americas, the temples of the East, the grandeur of Greece and Rome, and the sunken cities of legend, we see a common story, one of human creativity, ambition, and the eternal quest to leave a mark upon the world. Lost treasures are not just objects. They are mirrors of humanity's past, invitations to explore, and reminders of the impermanence and resilience of human endeavor. In the quiet of the night, one can almost hear the whispers of history, the faint shimmer of gold beneath sand or water, the soft glow of jade and precious stones, a silent testimony of civilizations long vanished. Lost treasures remind us that history is not only written in words and monuments, but in the objects that survived, the legends that endured, and the curiosity that drives us to uncover, understand, and cherish the past. And so, the story of lost treasures continues not only in the tombs, temples, and sunken cities that await discovery, but in our imagination, our research, and our wonder. The pursuit of these treasures connects us across centuries, continents, and cultures, offering a glimpse into the heart of human civilization itself. Stay tuned to History Sleep Stories for more journeys through time, where every artifact, legend, and hidden treasure tells a story waiting to be heard.